My sister got hired, then my parents threw me out, labeling me a freeloader. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My mother shoved my backpack at me and said, "Go freeload somewhere else." That's the last sentence I heard before the front door shut in my face. I stood on the porch with my whole life in one ripped backpack and a trash bag, watching the curtains twitch as my parents pretended not to look. Inside that house, the dishwasher still hummed, the TV still murmured, and my sister Mia was probably refreshing the email from her shiny new job for the 100th time. Out here, the air felt colder, like the entire street suddenly knew I was the family disappointment finally being taken to the curb. I'm Alex, 25, and according to my parents, I'm what happens when you waste your 20s. That's how my dad, David, likes to say it, with his accountant voice that makes everything sound like a spreadsheet error. My mom, Laura, just parrots him, smoothing invisible wrinkles out of her blouse while she explains how worried she is about what people will think. I've been juggling part-time shifts, gig work, and taking care of my grandmother before she went into assisted living, but none of that counts as real work to them. In their heads, you're either on a corporate ladder or you're lying on the couch. The crazy part is that I really thought I was helping by staying home longer, watching Gran so they didn't have to pay for a nurse, cooking when mom worked late, driving Mia's ancient Corolla to get groceries and oil changes. Somewhere along the line, that turned from "thank you" to "you're just taking advantage of us." I didn't notice the shift until it hit me square in the chest tonight. The porch light buzzed over my head, too bright, throwing a yellow halo over the welcome friends mat my mom bought last year. I stared at that word, friends, and realized I didn't even qualify as family anymore, at least not the kind that got a plate at the table. My throat burned, but I refused to cry where the neighbors might see, refused to give my parents the satisfaction of being right about how overly emotional I am. As I looked back at the door, my phone buzzed in my pocket with a notification from Nate, the only person who knew this blow-up was coming, and I realized something terrifying. Being thrown out wasn't even the worst thing that would happen tonight. People assume favoritism is obvious when you're a kid, like there's a scoreboard on the fridge with gold stars next to one name and frowny faces next to the other. In our house, it was quieter than that. Mia's drawings went on the fridge. Mine went in a folder for later. Her B in math was great effort considering how advanced the class is. My B was, you could have gotten an A if you applied yourself. By the time we were teenagers, the gap between us felt like a canyon I was supposed to cross with a single jump. Mia was the golden child before she even knew what that meant. First violin, honor roll, straight teeth smile in every Christmas card. When relatives visited, they'd ask her about her plans, her goals, her internships. When they turned to me, it was always, still figuring things out, Alex, said with that gentle pity that makes you want to scream. I wasn't failing, I was just slower. I liked working with people, with my hands, doing odd jobs, helping Gran organize her chaos of pill bottles and knitting needles. That sounded like no ambition to my parents. Your sister has a career path, my dad would say. You can't just drift forever, Alex. He'd say it while I was literally doing dishes or fixing the leaky sink, like visible labor in front of him didn't count because no one was giving me a W-2 for it. Mom would sigh and remind me that the neighbor's son had already bought a condo at 23. Apparently, the HOA sent them a crown along with the keys. The day Mia got hired at Brightstone Analytics, the whole house lit up like she'd won the lottery. Dad popped champagne he'd been saving for a special occasion. Mom cried happy tears and posted a photo of Mia's offer letter in the family group chat. I'm not kidding. My phone buzzed all afternoon with congratulations directed at her and thinly veiled jabs at me. At dinner that night, Dad raised his glass toward Mia, then let his eyes slide over to me with a smile I still feel like a bruise. That was the night he first called me our family's freeloading mistake. After high school, the expectation was that I'd follow Mia's footsteps to a 4-year college, get an internship, climb some sleek ladder in a glass building. Instead, life punched us in the throat. Gran's health started sliding fast, and somehow I was the one who was home when she fell the first time. One ambulance ride and a week in the hospital later, my parents decided someone needed to keep an eye on her between appointments. Just until we figure out a long-term plan, Mom said, eyes shiny. You're the most flexible right now, Alex. Flexible meant I deferred community college for a semester That turned into 3 years. While Mia built her LinkedIn empire, I built pill schedules, color-coded appointment calendars, and a weird sixth sense for when Gran was about to fall asleep in her soup. In between, I picked up shifts at the grocery store, unloaded trucks, walked dogs, cleaned neighbors' garages. I brought cash home, handed most of it to Mom when bills were due. No one called that providing. It was just helping out. Whenever I hinted at going back to school, Dad would sigh like I'd asked him to co-sign on a yacht. School is expensive, he'd say. We can't just throw money around because you're bored with your routine. This, from the man who upgraded his truck for safety the same month. Meanwhile, my friends posted dorm selfies and graduation photos, and I learned how to sleep in hospital chairs without my spine turning to dust. The joke is, I actually liked some of it. I liked being useful, solving little problems, seeing Gran relax because I knew what I was doing. That's the part one hate admitting, because it makes what happened next feel like it really was my fault, like I asked to be trapped here. The night before everything blew up, I came home from a double shift to find my parents discussing me like a broken appliance. I heard my name, then the words dead weight and taking advantage, spoken in the same tone you'd reserve for mildew. I didn't know their discussion would end with my life on the sidewalk. Mia's hiring at Brightstone landed 2 weeks after that conversation, like the universe wanted to underline how different we were. She came home in a blazer that still had the store creases, cheeks flushed, waving a printed offer letter like it was a golden ticket. They said my presentation sealed it, she said, dropping her bag on the table. Full benefits, bonus structure, the whole thing. Mom squealed like a teenager. Dad actually clapped. This, he said, tapping the letter, is what hard work looks like. Then, without missing a beat, he looked at me slumped at the kitchen counter and added, not random shifts and odd jobs. A real job, Alex. I literally just worked a 10-hour shift, I muttered. Dad shrugged. Anyone can clock in and shuffle boxes. Not everyone gets headhunted. It got worse when Mom posted the news on Facebook. She cropped the photo so you could see Mia's letter, the company logo, and just the corner of my shoulder where I happened to be standing. Her caption read, "So proud of our hard-working girl. All those late nights studying paid off." Within minutes, comments rolled in. You raised her right. Proof that discipline matters. One aunt added, some kids just need more time to mature, with a winky face, and I knew exactly which kid she meant. That night, we had a celebratory dinner at a mid-range steakhouse, the kind we only went to on anniversaries. I sat across from Mia while my parents peppered her with questions about salary, growth potential, 401k matching, stock options. The only time anyone addressed me was when the waiter asked for my order and my dad cut in to say, "He'll just get the burger. That's all he ever wants." When the dessert came with congrats MIA and chocolate drizzle, Dad raised his glass and decided to turn my humiliation into a toast. To Mia, he said, for proving that when you work hard, you don't end up living off your parents at 25. I laughed, but something inside me cracked so loudly I'm surprised no one heard it. The actual blow-up started over leftovers, which feels stupid to admit. It was 3 days after the steakhouse celebration. I'd just come back from a shift unloading trucks at dawn, sweat still drying on my shirt, and I opened the fridge to find a note taped over the containers. Mia's lunches, do not touch. I stared at the note, then at the tiny Tupperware stack of grilled chicken and quinoa. Seriously? I said out loud. Mom swooped in from the dining room like she'd been waiting. She has long days now, Laura said. She needs proper meals. You can make a sandwich. I pay for some of these groceries, I replied. Or does my money only count when it's coming out of my hand, not going into my mouth? Dad looked up from his laptop on the table, glasses low on his nose. Watch your tone, he said. Mia is working a real job. You're between things. I worked today, I shot back. I worked yesterday. I watched Gran for 3 years. When exactly does that start counting as something? He closed the laptop with the slow, patient anger I'd come to dread. You live here for free, he said. You don't pay rent. You don't have a career plan. You take, and then act like we owe you something. My heartbeat roared in my ears. I give you my time, my labor, my money when you ask. You said we couldn't afford a nurse, remember? You begged me to stay with Gran. Dad's face went cold. We sacrificed everything for you kids. We helped Mia because she had a direction. We can't keep enabling you while you drift. Enabling? I repeated. What exactly are you enabling, Dad? He pointed at my backpack by the stairs, stuffed with my work uniform. You know what, Alex? If you don't like how we run this house, you're free to go. Mom folded her arms. You're 25. We shouldn't still be supporting you. Mia's out there making us proud while you play at odd jobs and sulk. There it was, spoken like a sentence. You're a freeloader, Alex, Dad said. We're done. The word hung in the air like a bad smell. Freeloader. I actually laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. A freeloader who cooks, cleans, babysits, and hands you cash? I said. Sounds like a terrible deal for me, honestly. Mom jabbed a finger toward the stairs. Go pack your things. If you're so independent, prove it. We're not your safety net anymore. I waited for Mia to say something, to roll her eyes, to tell them they were being dramatic, anything. She stood by the sink with her travel mug, lips pressed together, eyes glued to the floor. Mia? I said. Seriously? She finally looked up. Maybe this will be good for you, Alex, she said softly. You can finally figure your life out. It hurt worse than Dad's words. I packed in a daze, grabbing clothes, my beaten-up laptop, Gran's old rosary she'd forgotten on her nightstand before the nursing home. When I came back down, my backpack and a trash bag of stuff waited by the door like outgoing mail. The speed of it made it obvious they'd rehearsed this in their heads long before the leftover argument. I'll send you your birth certificate and social when I find them, Mom said, like I was moving into a dorm instead of nowhere. You have Nate, don't you? You can stay with him for a bit. I opened my mouth to argue, then saw the relief barely hidden in her face. They wanted me gone. Not later, not when I'm stable. Now. Nate lived in a 2-bedroom apartment already stacked with mismatched furniture and mismatched roommates. When I showed up with my trash bag of clothes, he took one look at my face and didn't ask questions. Couch is yours, he said. Bathroom schedule's on the fridge. Rent is, we'll figure that out later. The first night, I lay on that sagging couch listening to the upstairs neighbors stomp and the distant hum of traffic, realizing I had no address to put on job applications and no savings beyond what was in my pocket. My parents hadn't texted, called, or even sent a passive-aggressive emoji. I had no idea how quickly that couch would stop feeling safe. The first week on Nate's couch was a blur of Indeed tabs, lukewarm coffee, and waking up every time someone walked past the living room. I landed a few short shifts through a temp agency, warehouse one day, call center the next, but nothing stuck. Every time I filled out current address, my hand hesitated. Use mine, Nate said, sliding a pizza box onto the coffee table. You live here for now? Might as well make it official. You sure your landlord won't freak? I asked. He snorted. Frank forgets his own birthday. You're fine. My parents remained radio silent. No, are you okay? No, do you need anything? Not even a passive-aggressive article about budgeting. The only family member who reached out was Aunt Rosa, via a random text that read, heard you moved out. Hope you finally get what you want, not just what they need. What they need. A few nights later, I was doom-scrolling when Mom's Facebook post popped up, shared by a cousin. It was a photo of Mia in front of a shiny downtown building, wearing a new coat I'd never seen before. The caption, so proud of our girl. All the sacrifices were worth it. We gave everything to make sure at least one of our kids made something of themselves. Sacrifices? My stomach flipped. In the comments, someone asked how they'd managed tuition and living expenses. Mom replied, we drained our resources, but you do what you must for a child who works that hard. I stared at the words, drained our resources, remembering the times I'd been told there was nothing left when I asked about school. Dad once sat me down at the kitchen table, hands folded, and said, the market crashed, Alex. Your college money is gone. We're all tightening our belts. I'd believed him, because why would your own father lie about something like that? Now, looking at Mia's new coat and that gleaming building, I wasn't so sure. The words forming in my head tasted sour before I even shaped them. And that was when a quiet, ugly thought slid in. Drained whose resources? Exactly. This time? Once you let yourself question one story, the others start to wobble too. I couldn't stop replaying Dad's speech about the market crash and the disappearing college fund. My phone still had the same banking app I'd used when I was saving birthday money as a teenager. On a shaky impulse, I logged in. The main checking account was empty, as expected, but buried in the linked accounts tab was something I'd never noticed, An education savings account with my name on it, marked closed. I tapped through the statements, heart thudding. Contributions for years. Then, about 6 years ago, a series of withdrawals. Final balance, 0. The memo line on the last transfer read, Brightstone tuition, MIA. I stared so long at those words that the screen dimmed. A laugh escaped me, half hysterical, half broken. All those nights I'd sat at the kitchen table, filling out scholarship applications on our crummy Wi-Fi, listening to Dad talk about tight belts, while that account drained quietly into my sister's future. Everything okay? Nate called from his room. Yeah, I lied. Just job stuff. I dug deeper. Old emails from the school counselor, reminding my parents about an SAT fee waiver I never used because we can't afford to send you anywhere anyway. A financial aid projection I'd printed and left on the counter, long forgotten, still saved as a PDF in my inbox. Every document told the same story. There had been options. They just weren't for me. Buried in a years-old text thread, I found a message from Aunt Rosa. Glad the insurance money helped with the kids' educations. Your parents would be proud. Insurance money? I had never heard about any payout after my grandparents died, just more sermons about how broke we were. My chest tightened as I realized this wasn't just about hurt feelings. Someone had stolen my future and wrapped it in the language of sacrifice. My thumb hovered over Rosa's contact, heart pounding, because if anyone would tell me the truth, it was the aunt who'd always slipped me extra dessert and whispered, "You deserve more than they give you credit for." For the first time, I wondered what else they'd quietly taken. Calling Rosa felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. I stared at her name, thumbs sweating against the glass, before finally tapping call. She picked up on the second ring. Alex? Her voice was warm, surprised. Honey, everything okay? Not really, I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. I found something. About some insurance money? For college? There was a long pause, the kind where you can hear someone deciding whether to lie. Your parents didn't tell you about that? She asked carefully. They told me there was no money, I said. That the market crashed and my college fund was gone. But I just saw an education account with my name on it, closed out, and the last transfer memo says, Brightstone tuition, Mia. Rosa exhaled so slowly it sounded like a tire losing air. Your grandparents set up that account when you were born, she said. Equal accounts for you and Mia. After they passed, the life insurance paid out more than we expected. Your folks said they'd combined some of it, so you both had enough for school. I assumed they used it like they said. My stomach rolled. They did, I said bitterly. Just not for both of us. She was quiet for a moment. Then, Alex, when Mia got that big scholarship freshman year, your dad bragged at Thanksgiving that they'd been smart with the money. Said they reallocated funds so she wouldn't have loans. I thought he meant the leftover portion, not this. Tears blurred my vision, hot and useless. They called me a freeloader while spending my college money to keep me loan-free. Honey, Rosa said softly, I think you need to see the paperwork for yourself. When we hung up, I sat in the dark living room, phone heavy in my hand, realizing that for the first time I had something my parents couldn't dismiss as feelings. I had proof. I could already picture Dad's expression when he realized I'd seen behind the curtain. And proof, once printed and held in your fingers, demands to be used. I didn't text Mia right away. For a few days, I existed in a fog made of job applications and PDFs, printing statements at the library like some low-budget detective. Nate would come home, step over the piles of paper on the coffee table, and raise an eyebrow. You building a lawsuit or a bonfire? He asked one night. Maybe both, I said. Eventually, avoidance turned into strategy. If I confronted my parents without Mia knowing anything, they'd spin it as me being jealous, unhinged, trying to tear her down. I needed to know what she'd been told before I shoved the truth in their faces. So I typed and deleted the same text to her about 20 times before settling on. Can we talk? Not about your job. About me. Please. She replied an hour later. Sure. Coffee near my office tomorrow. I almost said no. The idea of seeing her in her new world, shiny, professional, untouched by the fallout, made my skin crawl. But I needed answers more than I needed to protect my ego. So the next day, I took 2 buses downtown and stood outside a glass building I'd technically paid for. Mia spotted me through the cafe window and waved, her company badge swinging from her lanyard. Up close, she looked tired but polished, like adulthood fit her even when it pinched. "Hey, stranger," she said, hugging me with one arm. "How's everything?" "Educational," I said. "I learned I used to have a college fund." Her smile faltered, just a flicker, but I saw it. She looked down at her coffee lid, tracing the edge with her thumbnail. "Dad told me your account got wiped out in that crash," she said quietly. "He said you weren't interested in school anymore anyway, that you wanted to find yourself first." I laughed sharp. "Did he mention using my wiped-out account to cover your last semester and your security deposit?" Mia's head snapped up, eyes wide. "What are you talking about, Alex?" I slid one of the printed statements across the table between us, heart pounding so hard I felt it in my teeth. For the first time, I watched my perfect sister realize our parents' story didn't add up. Mia read the statement once, then again, her lips moving over the numbers. The cafe noise faded around us. "This could be a mistake," she said finally, but her voice lacked conviction. "Maybe the labels are weird, or—" "Mia," I said softly, "there's an entire closed account in my name. Years of deposits. Then those transfers, right when you started at Brightstone. The memo literally says your tuition." Color drained from her face. "Dad told me they were stretched thin," she whispered. "He said they were taking on debt, maxing cards. Also, I wouldn't have to start my career already drowning." She let out a shaky laugh. "He said you refused to take school seriously, that you dropped applications and never followed through. He made it sound like we had to choose the kid who wanted it." Heat surged in my chest. "I sat with him and filled out half those applications at the kitchen table," I said. "He told me not to waste the fees." She flinched like I'd hit her. "I didn't know," she said. "Alex, I swear, I didn't know it was your money." "I believe you," I said, and I meant it. Mia was many things, but she wasn't subtle enough to orchestrate embezzlement. We spent an hour going through screenshots on my phone, the emails, the text from Rosa, the account history. By the end, Mia looked like someone had tilted her world and let all the color run out. "This is bad," she murmured. "If they used insurance money and your fund like this. I mean, I don't even know if it's illegal, but it's definitely disgusting." "Rosa thinks there are more documents at the house," I said. "Wills, policy statements, maybe written instructions from Gran." Mia swallowed. "They'll never hand those over willingly." "Then we need to make it impossible for them to spin," I said. "We need witnesses, and we need every lie lined up beside the receipts." For years, our parents had cast us as opposites in a rigged play. Mia's eyes met mine, and for once we were finally planning something together. We didn't have to manufacture a family gathering. Fate handed us one on a silver platter. Mom texted me out of nowhere. "Family dinner Sunday for Mia's first month at Brightstone. You're invited. Please be civil." The "please be civil" made me laugh out loud. "Are you going?" Nate asked, peering over my shoulder. "Oh, I'm going," I said. "I'm bringing a +1. I held up the manila folder stuffed with copies of statements, emails, and Rose's handwritten note where she'd jotted down the insurance policy number. Sunday evening, Mia picked me up a few blocks from Nate's place so my parents wouldn't see the apartment. She gripped the steering wheel like it might bolt. "They think this is just a celebration," she said. "Are you sure about doing it like this?" "Am I sure about confronting the people who stole my future and called me a leech?" I said. "Pretty sure, yeah." She winced. "Okay, I don't know what's going to be left after tonight." The house smelled like roast chicken and lemon cleaner when we walked in, the same scent of forced normalcy as every holiday. Mom greeted Mia with a hug and air kiss, then turned to me with a tight smile. "Alex, you look tired. Are you working?" "Always," I said, "just not in ways that count for you." Dad was at the head of the table, carving knife in hand, looking like a king about to preside over a feast. "Let's keep things pleasant," he said. "No drama. This is Mia's night." "Actually," Mia said, voice shaking only a little, "it's our night." Mom's eyes darted between us. "What does that mean?" "It means Aunt Rose is joining us on video," I said, pulling my phone from my pocket and setting it face up on the table, her name already flashing on the screen. The folder of documents sat beside my plate like an extra, unwelcome guest. Dad's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the way it did whenever a client asked a question he didn't like. For the first time ever, my parents looked nervous before grace was even said. Grace didn't happen. As soon as Rose's face appeared on my screen, Mom's smile froze. "Oh," she said. "We weren't expecting." "Hi." Loretta, Rosa cut in, using the childhood nickname that always made Mom flinch. Thought I'd join since you're celebrating all those sacrifices paying off. Dad set the knife down a little too hard. We really don't need an audience, he said. This is a family matter. That's exactly why she's here, I replied. My hands were surprisingly steady as I opened the folder. Because you've been telling very different family stories depending on who you're talking to. Mom's eyes narrowed. Alex, if this is about you being upset, we can discuss it privately. This isn't about feelings, I said. It's about numbers. I laid out the printed statements like tarot cards, the education account in my name, the transfer to Mia's tuition, the insurance deposit after my grandparents died. Mia backed me up, sliding her own phone across the table to show the text thread where I'd sent screenshots. Rosa watched from my screen, lips pressed thin. Where did you get those? Dad demanded, color rising in his cheeks. From the bank app you forgot to unlink, I said. From emails you forgot to delete. From Rosa, who remembers Grands while saying the money was for both of us. Mom's voice trembled. We did what we had to do. Alex, you were aimless. You would have wasted that money. It was mine to waste, I snapped. Instead, you spent it, and then called me a freeloader for not climbing out of the hole you dug. Mia looked at them, something hard settling behind her eyes. Did you really tell me you were going into debt for my tuition while using Alex's fund and the insurance? Dad's jaw clenched. We made a choice, he said. We invested in the child who would actually make us proud. On my phone screen, Rosa covered her mouth and whispered, My God, like a prayer gone sour. Hearing that out loud, I felt something irrevocably snap inside me. Once something snaps, you can't pretend it's still intact. The rest of the dinner disintegrated fast. Mom launched into damage control, insisting they'd had no choice, that I'd never shown real interest in school, that Mia made the most sense for investment. Every sentence was another shovel of dirt thrown onto the grave of whatever trust one had left. You're twisting this into theft, she cried. We kept a roof over your head for 25 years. We fed you. We covered your mistakes. How is that freeloading? You kept a roof over my head with money that was partly mine, I said. You used my future as a coupon and then called me ungrateful because I didn't magically turn dishwasher experience into a salary. Dad slammed his hand on the table. You are not entitled to our money, he said. Parents make decisions. You don't get to audit our choices because you're bitter. Rosa cut in from the phone, voice steel sharp. They were trustees for funds left in your name, Alex, she said. That comes with responsibilities. At the very least, honesty. Mia pushed her chair back. I can't believe you lied to both of us, she said to our parents. You weaponized Alex's life to make me feel guilty and grateful at the same time. You wouldn't understand now, Dad said. One day, when you have kids. No, she snapped. If I ever have kids, I won't rob one and call the other my investment. Silence fell so heavy it felt physical in my lungs. Finally, I stood, gathered the papers, and slid a small stack back across the table. These are copies, I said, in case any lawyer ever asks you what happened to Gran's money and mine. Mom's eyes filled with tears that, for once, didn't move me. If you walk out now, don't expect to come back, she said. Mia grabbed her coat. If Alex isn't welcome as more than your scapegoat, neither am I, she said quietly, following me toward the door. I realized I wasn't the one being cut off anymore. I was the one finally cutting. It's been a year since that dinner, and I still sometimes wake up on Nate's old couch in my dreams, heart pounding, certain I'm about to be kicked out again. In real life, I'm waking up in a studio apartment that smells like coffee and laundry detergent, the first place I've ever had my name alone on the lease. The ceilings are low, the pipes rattle, and it is mine. After everything blew up, there were weeks of fallout. Mom sent a few long, rambling texts about how context matters and you don't know what it's like to be a parent. Dad sent one message, consider this bridge burned. I stared at those words for a long time before blocking his number and screenshotting the thread for my therapist. Yeah, therapist. Nate practically marched me to a sliding scale clinic after I spent 3 days pretending I was fine while shaking every time my phone buzzed. Sitting in that cramped office, I learned phrases like scapegoat child, narrative control, and conditional love. I also learned that I wasn't crazy for feeling like a workhorse treated as a freeloader. I'd been convenient until I wasn't, and then disposable. Work looks different now, too. I landed a full-time job as a patient coordinator at a community clinic. Organized chaos, cranky people, and a constant reminder that I'm good at caretaking when I'm not being exploited for it. The pay isn't amazing, but it's stable, and every paycheck has my name on it, not my parents' judgment. Mia and I talk, carefully. She's paying off some of my lingering debts quietly, over my protests, calling it interest on the loan I never knew I took. She still sees our parents occasionally, but with boundaries I never thought she'd set. Here's what I've learned. In my house, Freeloader meant kid who doesn't make us look impressive. It had nothing to do with effort or character and everything to do with optics. If you're listening to this thinking you're the problem child because your family says so, I want you to ask yourself one question. Who benefits from you believing that?